absolutely beautiful. Seeing you all marching up to the Capitol steps fills me with joy. Thank you all for joining us today. I see many familiar faces in the crowd and many new faces. I'm sure that we all have our own reasons for showing up. Your reason might differ from the person standing next to you, and that is okay. I think that it is important to recognize that we showed up for each other. But remember, our battle doesn't end here. We must continue to show up for each other every day. This is the 8th year we've hosted this rally. Unfortunately, this past year has incited a large amount of angst and anger. However, these emotions are fueling a fire and the energy is phenomenal. While the phone calls, emails, town halls, rallies, and campouts in our representative offices at times felt as though our effort fell flat, I promise you, we made a difference. One of the best things that came out of the past year is the enthusiasm that has inspired so many new candidates to run for office. Many of those candidates are in the crowd today, and I would like to personally thank you for being here. Thank you for your bravery, and thank you for joining this fight. Our grassroots efforts are for naught without people in there willing to listen to us and speak up for us. I would like to thank any legislators and other elected officials who are also here today. Thank you for your representation. It is essential that we take the time to acknowledge the multiple events that are being held today. Through a strong network of activists seeking an intersectional approach, we join efforts to organize events around the state in hopes to bring attention to a variety of topics. Our goal is to let leaders in Arkansas at all levels of governments know that Arkansans are fed up with what is happening now, and we demand a better future for every person in our state. In addition to today's March on the Polls and this rally, activists in Northwest Arkansas are marching today as well. The large crowds at each event symbolizes our strength and perseverance. We are sending a powerful message that regardless of what they throw our way, we will not back down. Throughout the years, the Arkansas Coalition for Reproductive Justice has broadened to include a wide array of organizations that support reproductive justice. Before we start with our wonderful speakers in the main program, I want to take some time to thank the organizations that are supporting our rally. Keep in mind that these organizations here today also need your support, whether that's by volunteering or donating money, they need your help as well. Our platinum level sponsors include Sierra Club of Arkansas, the ACLU of Arkansas, AAUW of Arkansas, Progressive Arkansas Women's PAC, Planned Parenthood of Great Plains, the Human Rights Campaign, Arkansas Society of Free Thinkers, Arkansas Campaign to Prevent Unclean Pregnancies, and Citizens First Congress. Our gold level sponsors include Arkansas Coalition for Healthy Youth, Arkansas Abortion Support Network, and Be the Change Alliance. And thank you to the rest of the sponsors that are here with us today as well. Now to begin, I'm honored to introduce our MC for the day, Kendra R. Johnson. Kendra joined the Human Rights Campaign as Arkansas State Director for Project One America in August 2014. As a native of Little Rock, Arkansas, Kendra is thrilled to be working to advance fairness and equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people right in her own backyard. Through Project One America, Kendra hopes to build a better, more equitable South that is strengthened by diversity, safe schools, inclusive institutions, and welcoming communities. Kendra has been a lifelong volunteer and activist, including founding the first lesbian bisexual support group at Spelman College in the 90s, and volunteering communication services for Brazil's first historically black college. She currently serves as the board chair for Southerners on New Ground, the largest grassroots LGBT organization in the South. Please join me in welcoming Kendra.
welcome to the 8th Annual Rally for Reproductive Justice. If you have ever heard me speak before in my role as State Director of the Human Rights Campaign, you have undoubtedly heard me say what an honor and a privilege it is to do what I do every single day. But today, I just don't even have the words to express the incredible honor it is to be here sharing a few thoughts and introducing this group of world-changing women who will speak to you today. You see, this weekend marks the 45th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. And 1 year since the inauguration of 45. And if there's one message I want to get across to all of you today, is that we got work to do, people. Lots of it. And we are the ones that we have been waiting for. If you're like me, November 9th, 2016 brought a hard reality check about the United States and its progress. And now don't get me wrong, I am and I have always been clear about this country's spotty interpretation of words that are supposed to be the very pillars of this society. Words like all people are created equal, endowed with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I knew that those words and their interpretation were true for some of us at different times in this nation's history, but never for all of us. I knew that some of us had burned bras, and some of us had marched silently to end lynching, and some of us had gone to strike in fields to have decent working conditions as farm workers. Some of us faced brutality and death to end Jim Crow and secure voting rights. And some of us had started the gay rights movement at Stonewall only to reap almost none of the benefits. And some of us have never stopped marching. From Take Back Tonight, the Night, to Slut Walks, to Black Lives Matter, to Uplift and Protect Trans Women, to Defend Dreamers, and to Love is Love. And still, here we are today, where 1 in 3 women suffer sexual assault. 1 in 3 women have endured intimate partner violence, and American women every day make 70 cents on the dollar compared to men. And all of those statistics, they change dramatically, and not for the better if we're talking about our trans sisters, our black and brown sisters, our resource poor sisters, and our differently abled sisters and undocumented sisters. I knew all those things, but what was different on November 9th, 2016 is that the implicit became painfully explicit. We who have been fighting for our lives, fighting to hold on to the right to safe, accessible abortions, fighting police brutality, fighting to save our schools, fighting deportation, violence, poverty, racism, and incarceration, we all saw a white supremacist walk into the White House and declare open season on our lives, liberties, and pursuit of happiness. And while November 9th for me personally was the straw that broke my spirit and led to months of depression, something else happened in this country. Women like you and women like the women who will follow me on this podium organized. They kicked off historic marches in resistance. They formed indivisible chapters. They stood up to say Me Too. They toppled Confederate statues. They fought to make sure that Black Lives Matter. They flooded town halls to keep affordable health care. They stood undocumented and unafraid, and they ran for office. They continued to fight to keep our schools. They organized campaigns. They mobilized voters, and they delivered historic victories. We elected 8 trans people to office across the country. And we defeated the despicable, racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, pedophile Roy Moore. I tell you, we are the ones that we have been waiting for. Now I want to get to this badass lineup of women who are going to talk to you about the many experiences and realities that we face as women, cisgender, transgender, and non-binary people. But before I turn it over to the Reverend Dr. Denise Donnell to lead us in prayer, I want to leave you with this one thought and a quote from Audre Lorde. None of us know each other's struggles. As women, cisgender, transgender, non-binary, black, brown, white, able-bodied, disabled, resource poor, documented or undocumented. So let's take the time to listen and learn from each other, because together we're unstoppable. And now, Audre Lorde, there is no such thing as a single issue struggle, because we do not live single issue lives. Our struggles are particular, but we are not alone. And now let's get this rally started. I'm pleased to introduce my former work colleague, Reverend Dr. Denise Donnell, who is the Director of Programs at Just Communities of Arkansas, to lead us in a prayer.
Thank you, Kendra, and thank you to Christina and Planned Parenthood, and thank you to all of you for this privilege and this honor to pray with you this morning. This afternoon, let us pray. Spirit of the living God, Jehovah, Allah, Creator, Universe, Adonai, El Shaddai, Breath of Life, Source of Love. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to stand up for human rights. Without us even knowing it, you designed us in very special, unique ways. To each of us gathered in this space, you have given a particular gift. You have named us advocate, activist, empath, compassion seeker, truth teller, lovers of humanity. Then you made sure to equip us with everything we need to use these gifts to make this world a better place for us to live, to learn, to work, to play, to love, to simply be. You were intentional in making us wonderful, beautiful, bold, confident, unapologetic. You have given us minds guided by a deep sense of what you would have us do. We are your hands. We are your feet. We are your head. We are your heart. We are your voices. And with the power of your presence reverberating through our vocal cords, we raise our voices high and loud and proud. With your voice, we shout that every person has the right to have children. With your voice, we shout, every person has the right not to have children. With your voice, we shout, every person has a right to parent their children in safe, healthy environments. Give us the strength to keep fighting for the good of all of your people. Energize us, re-energize us, multiply us so that our work does not stop until the victory is won and all of your people are free. This we ask in all of your names. Hallelujah. Amen. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Denise Donnell. And now I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Kati McFarland, who is a healthcare and disability activist, advocate, and sexual assault survivor. They live with a severe form of incurable genetic disorder, and they're only alive thanks to the Affordable Care Act and Medicare. They have worked tirelessly, locally and nationally, to advance the visibility, integration, and advancement of people with disabilities of all kinds, and for anyone who depends on affordable and complete health care coverage. They wanted me to cite that they have been arrested as in part of that process, and they have been away from their home for 6 months, fighting the good fight for us, and we're thankful to have them here and for them putting their voice and their body on the line in acts of civil disobedience. So let's welcome Kati McFarland to the podium.
It's on? Okay, it's fine. It's on. All right. I cannot say how much of an honor it is to be here today and to speak here today, especially to be here home in Arkansas after what feels like spending more time in DC over the past year than I have at home. More time in U.S. Capitol PD custody in the past year than I have at home. But again, it's good to be home and it's good to be speaking. Now, every public speaking engagement I've had for the past year, I have every mic check, every television interview and appearance, I've given the same introductory spiel. My name's Kati, I'm from Springdale, Arkansas. I have this rare disease that weakens my heart and veins and joints, paralyzes my stomach. Without the ACA, I would be dead. Without Medicare, I would literally starve to death. And all of that's true. But last month, my spiel changed because last month, I became part of the 80+% of disabled people and 78% of bisexual people who will face rape or sexual assault in their lifetime. And suddenly, healthcare for me wasn't just a matter of survival. It was a matter of reclaiming my body as my own. Healthcare was a matter of protecting myself from the consequences of this horrible thing that someone had done to me. In that first vital 72 hours, I could not control the voice inside of me that kept saying that if I just said no earlier and louder and more, that I could have changed things. And to be honest, most days I still can't control that voice. I can't do it yet, I just can't. But what I could control was demanding HIV post-exposure prophylactics, putting those in my body twice a day, every day, for a month. I could control putting Plan B into my body and then putting it into my body again after I picked up the first dose because, spoiler alert, Plan B is kind of brutal. But healthcare, reproductive care especially, wasn't just about survival. It was about taking back control of my own voice and reclaiming reproductive and healthcare justice in whatever little ways I could. Because Dr. King said it himself, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Dr. King also said that of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is one of the most shocking and inhumane. And the sad fact is, disabled people, among many others, don't have much of a voice because people don't like to think of us. People don't like to think how easily disability could happen to them, how quickly their lives could change. And I have just, in speaking about my own disability and asking questions about accessibility in events, I have been called divisive. I have been called distracting. But we can't think of these questions as divisive or distracting. Instead, we must think of every question that must be answered or group left unmentioned as an opportunity to unite further, to amplify each other even more. And as I said, our rape rate is roughly 80%. As a recent NPR report revealed, intellectually disabled women are raped and assaulted at 7 times the national average. We're the last to be believed, if we're last to be mentioned, if we're even mentioned at all. But we can change this, because not only is taking control of our reproductive rights and care one way to reclaim our voice, but the other way, the most powerful way, is to use it. To use our voices themselves to speak out. Because despite what our esteemed Senator Cotton would have us believe, governance is not the provenance of an elite. And change does not start at the top. Trickle-down activism is just as useless as trickle-down economics. If we want to change our communities, if we want to unite our communities, then we have to start at the bottom, and that means starting with the most oppressed. That means starting with the immigrants who can't even report the rampant assaults by their superiors for fear of losing their jobs, for fear of being deported. That means starting with the black women whose health has been degraded by neglect of the medical, research, and academic communities. And yes, that means even the white queers in wheelchairs like me. Because if we start from the bottom, if we empower the voices of the least among us, then truly anyone's voice can matter. We can't wait for some elite, far-off group of rich people in black dresses and tuxes to tell us from on high with fancy words to come save us, to tell us that time's up, to reclaim our time, etc. As great as those things are, what is going to save us is our unity. What's going to save us is our intersectionality, is our dedication to making sure everyone's voice is as loud and can ring as loud and as long and into as many hidden places as it can. We will not only weather sexual assault, harassment, rape, but through uniting, finding the courage to speak out about our experiences and about the economic conditions that facilitate these abuses, and speaking out about and acting against the economic power imbalances that force disabled women into nursing homes where we are sitting ducks for predators, that keep immigrants and women of color under the thumb of predators in jobs they can't afford to leave, through calling our legislators to stand up for the Americans with Disabilities Act, for the Disability Integration Act, for the Dreamers, through multitasking, through speaking out about every injustice, through amplifying every voice, we will eradicate abuse. And that is what I truly believe we can do if we put our minds to it and if we lift each other up. And I know we can lift each other up. Do you all think we can? Yeah. And with that, I will shut up now and give it to the next speaker.
Y'all give it up for Kati McFarland. Next up, it's my privilege to introduce the Executive Director of the ACLU, Rita Sklar, who is a New York City native, started at Cornell and graduated from Hunter College. And during her 20-plus years at the ACLU, she has led the organization to secure better due process for the mentally ill in the criminal justice system, has helped to pass an anti-racial profiling law and laws protecting the rights of juveniles being questioned by the police. She successfully challenged the voter ID law and worked tirelessly for voting rights, and either stopped or gotten overturned several laws on gay fostering or adopting. In short, she's been a freedom fighter for us all. Recently, the ACLU has taken on the criminalization of poverty by challenging a debtor's prison scheme right here in Sherwood. And she continues to work to support us all every day. She's one of my greatest partners in the state, right here at the State House, and it's my pleasure to bring Rita to the stage.
Hello, freedom fighters! All right, let's see those signs. Shake your sabers, yeah! I tell you, it's a beautiful sight. Beautiful sight. I am proud and honored to be here with you all and with my esteemed colleagues on the stage, we can move forward. For nearly 100 years, the ACLU has been fighting for the fundamental rights of everyone within our borders. The rights of immigrants and refugees, the rights of LGBTQ people and communities of color, the rights of the homeless and people with disabilities, and the rights of women to access contraception and abortion and to equal protection under the law. We fight for these rights regardless of who sits in the White House or the governor's mansion, and even when it's unpopular to do so. And as someone who has spent the better part of my working life on these issues, can you believe we're still having to protest these issues? 45 years ago, this week, in its landmark ruling in Roe v. Wade, the United States Supreme Court affirmed a fundamental truth that a woman's right to personal autonomy is meaningless if she is denied the ability to make the most deeply personal decision of all, the decision when and whether to have children. But half a century later, politicians are still trying to drag us backwards. And so half a century later, we're still marching. And the ACLU is still suing to stop unconstitutional abortion restrictions from endangering women and their health here in Arkansas and around the country. Over the past few years, Arkansas politicians have passed a tsunami of abortion restrictions, trying to shutter clinics, ban safe abortion methods, and force women to undergo invasive interrogations about their motives. At the federal level, the Trump administration is trying to force incarcerated immigrant teenagers to continue pregnancies against their will. What country is this? I ask myself. We've sued to block these degrading abortion restrictions from taking place and to defend the reproductive rights of immigrants in federal custody. Because the government has the power to deny legal rights and due process to one vulnerable group, everyone's rights are at risk. That's why when the state of Arkansas tried to stop Fayetteville from protecting its LGBTQ residents from discrimination, we sued. It's why we're fighting back against wealth-based incarceration and shutting down modern-day debtors' prisons. And it's why we fought and fight Trump's discriminatory Muslim ban. To protect the rights of refugees, including women and children fleeing unspeakable violence. But the defense of liberty can't just happen in courthouses and Capitol building. Defending the Constitution is going to take all of us fighting together, arm in arm in communities across the country, talking to our neighbors over the fence lines, and to our families around the kitchen tables. With the power of collective action, nothing can stop us. We saw that just last year. We will see it this year. When extremist politicians proposed a bill that would criminalize transgender Arkansans and banish them from public facilities, we Arkansans, men, women, black, white, straight, gay, transgender, brown, fought together, and we won and stopped this bill in its tracks. one united voice, more loudly and clearly than ever before. We won't go back. To those who advance their own political agendas at the expense of vulnerable people and communities, we say, we won't go back. Who treat The Handmaid's Tale like an instruction manual and not a cautionary tale, we won't go back. And to President Trump, who brags about committing sexual assault and who believes women deserve some sort of punishment for obtaining abortions, let's say it so he can hear us, whether he's in Washington, D.C. or down in Mar-a-Lago. We won't go back! Won't go back! We won't go back! We won't go back! We won't go back! On behalf of the ACLU of Arkansas, you have our commitment that we will never stop fighting for reproductive justice and for the fundamental rights and human dignity of every Arkansan. And you can't do it alone. The ACLU of Arkansas and the fine organizations represented here today need your support more than ever before. So I'd ask you, when you go home today, do one more thing. Whether it's donating, signing up on our website, acluarkansas.org, or supporting one of the other wonderful organizations here today, you make the work happen. We've come too far and worked too hard to turn back now. Together, women, men, we need you, and thank you for coming today. I think it takes a real man to come to a woman's march. What do you think? Together we will defend and expand our fundamental rights and build a future of greater freedom and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, next up to the podium is Dr. Janet Cathey, who is a lifelong Arkansan and a proud product of public schools. She graduated from medical school and completed a residency in OBGYN at UAMS and enjoyed a successful private practice in the community until a spinal cord injury forced her into early retirement. After a great deal of physical therapy, she joined the teaching faculty at the Department of OBGYN in 2013. In October of 2014, with the support and assistance of colleagues at UAMS and mental health professionals in the community, Dr. Cathey opened a gender clinic at UAMS. And she saves lives every day. Dr. Cathey is a strong advocate for women's reproductive rights and pro-choice legislation, and has made several appearances before our state legislators to defend our rights. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Cathey to the stage.
All right, our mothers were right. Words do matter. Diversity, fetus, transgender, vulnerable, entitlement, science-based, and evidence-based. If we are going to ban words in science, how can we expect to educate our children? And if we can't educate our children on the most basic principles of science, how are we going to keep our children safe? We know from teen pregnancy rates and #MeToo movement, we have failed and we are failing to properly educate our children on human reproduction, sexuality, and more importantly, about intimacy. And if we are failing our children, we are failing our LGBTQ children on an even grander scale. We have to teach transgender children that sexual activity puts them at a much higher risk of HIV, and this is especially true if they're of color. This is science-based. But to me, even more compelling is that these children have to be taught that your sexuality, how you identify and how you present yourself, you could get yourself harmed and even killed. And that we have to teach them this at all shows an even greater failure of our sexual education. It means that we as a society have failed to teach others that gender presentation and expression of sexuality is a right that we all deserve. It's not just a civil right, it is a basic human right. Comprehensive sexual education needs to include affirmation of LGBTQ children by all children. I would suggest we think about two words, common and normal. And in science, just because something is more common, cisgender or heterosexual, that does not mean more normal. What if we began early education instead of saying boys have a penis and girls have a vagina? We began by saying some kids have a penis and some kids have a vagina. What if we said, you know, some kids like trucks and sports and dirt, and some kids like dolls and ruffles and dresses, and some kids like to wear their dresses when they play in the dirt. But all kids want to have fun, and because kids play and want to play and have fun in different ways, and it's because they have different brains. We should teach our kids, you know, our brains are busy. Some things we learn and decide for ourselves, like I should not hit my sister, and some things our brains decides for us. Am I going to be right-handed or am I going to be left-handed? And with that concept, as children grow older and the conversation changes to sexuality, then it's not a big leap that sexual orientation and gender identification are things our brain decides for us, that those aren't things that we change. Words such as gender identification, gender presentation, sexual orientation should fit seamlessly into conversation, that these words are used intuitively and affirmatively. Our goal should be that when a child comes out as trans, that those around him say, great, what pronoun do you want me to use? That should be normal. And we teach children so that when they become parents, they know that affirming who your child is just a part of loving them unconditionally. And educators have to be sensitive that in any given class of 30 kids, there's going to be 2 or 3 that identify as gay or lesbian, and there's probably going to be 1 in there that's going to identify as trans. But all children should know that safely expressing sexuality is a basic right. And we are here today because we care about the worth of all children. We know that a child's worth has nothing to do with their gender identification or sexual orientation. We are here because we care that all children feel loved and affirmed. Gender stereotyping now starts even before birth. You see Facebook pages with these big reveal parties, literally in utero. We are just assigning children gender roles. But the irony is the brain has already probably determined gender identification, and it may not match that big reveal. Once again, proof our kids are going to get in the last word. And their words matter, and we need to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cathey. Next up to the stage, I'm delighted to introduce Diana Pacheco, who is a 20-year-old from Mexico City. She's a student at Philander Smith College, and she's studying business administration and hospitality management. She works as a food and beverage supervisor at Crown Plaza Hotel, and she says she's had many trips in her life, ups and downs, but she always gets up because she has two little people who follow her footsteps, her niece and her nephew, Camila and Alexander. Diana says that they are her motivation to keep going. So please welcome to the stage, Diana Pacheco.
Thank you for inviting me today. I know the story of a girl who is a dreamer. She came from the state of Mexico and arrived in the United States at the age of 6. Her mother and father weren't ready to have a baby. Once the baby was born, the baby told the father, the mother told the father to choose between the baby or the house. The father chose the baby over the house, and the mother stayed with the home. Later, the father found out that the mother was murdered because she was on the descriptive path, not good steps. The father used to leave the baby in different homes with different people. The baby at the age of 3 was left with her aunt father. The aunt mistreated her, abused her, and beat her. And sometimes didn't let the baby eat. She had scars on her body of the mistreatment. Time passed and her father took her away from her aunt. He took her to live with the family friends. This time took her and enrolled her in local school. Her mother, with whom this infirm now lives, took her to the United States so that she would not take the same path her biology mother took and wouldn't have to suffer. Thanks to the family with the whom she lives now, she was able to finish high school and now in college preparing to fulfill her dreams. She is studying hospitality management and business administration. She is thankful and grateful to the family with whom she is right now, and we will always be grateful. To have them in their lives. Because the baby girl from Mexico realized that a mother is not the one who leaves, but the one who nurses you. The Señora Magdalena Camacho and Alejandra Lopez have been a mother and father figure at the same time for the little girl from Mexico. With her initial circumstance coming into this world in the path she could have taken, but did not go on because she decided to go to the right track. And in this day, she is 20 years old, has 3 jobs, and is studying at Philander Smith College. The baby girl from Mexico is standing before you today, sharing her story. I am a dreamer. A DACA recipient and a volunteer for Arkansas United Community Coalition, otherwise known as AUCC. AUCC is a nonprofit, non-partisan organization that has helped me on this journey and give me opportunities to help my community to represent Arkansas at a national level in Washington, D.C. last December. Boy, let me tell you something. It was a memorable experience. I was astonished at how many dreamers were present, all united at the same time, at the same location, for same causes: the protection of our families and stopping separation of families caused by police's empty promises and false grants. Those in power continue to show us, the people, this is an issue for reproductive right because a child is separated from their parents. No one knows where they will end and what path they may take. Another reproductive right issue is that women like men are afraid to go to the hospital and get checkups for fear of deportation. This is not right, and we must become a part of change to really help our most vulnerable by providing and sharing know your rights information, such as the right to remain in silence, the right to an attorney, the right to not sign anything, the right to not open the doors to the law enforcement without a signal and date warning that is specific, looking for someone in the household. Although those may seem pretty obvious, this know your rights information may make the difference between a child losing a parent to the system. It is heartbreaking to see a 7-year-old child cry in fear of losing a parent. Another way to help Arkansas communities is by attending community forums such as the one being held on Monday, January 29th at 6 p.m. in a country inn and suite in Conway, Arkansas. We will be selling K-pops for fundraise. If you come from another part of the state, then you are look, because we will having these forums in Fort Smith, Northwest Arkansas, and Southwest Arkansas. Please feel free if you go into our Facebook page and locate a nurse even to you, if this is an open invitation to everyone. So please come, because we understand that if we all are equipment with the right information, we can do more. Therefore, it is important to defend everyone with the privilege some of us carry, because regardless of religions, denominations, political, affectional age, sexual orientation, gender, and race, we may never know when we will be placed in these situations. Therefore, us to see through the lens of the present, we must strive to preserve humanity through love and not hate. And as Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. May God bless the United States of Arkansas.
Y'all give it up again for Diana. She was... Arkansas United Community Coalition, AUCC. Next up to the podium is our keynote speaker today, Dr. Anika Whitfield. She is a Little Rock native, and she has been a human rights activist since childhood. She says she's always been concerned about the safety and well-being of others, especially people who appear most vulnerable or marginalized, and has witnessed examples through faith teachings and family members. Dr. Whitfield is an ordained Baptist preacher and a podiatrist. She has been a Little Rock School District volunteer in public schools since 1995 and has been an organizer with the Little Rock School District Save Our Schools since 2016. She is currently an organizer for Citizens Against Taxation Without Representation, Grassroots Arkansas, and quad chair for Arkansas Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. Dr. Anika Whitfield was also a big sister with Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Central Arkansas for 7 years, and her little sister graduated in May. Please welcome Dr. Anika Whitfield to the podium.
Are we fired up? Are we ready to go? Fired up? Ready to go? Are we fired up? Are we ready to go? Yes! The time is now, and we are the people to do it. We don't need to wait on anybody else. There's not a Superman or a Superwoman that we need to be looking for. We are the they. We are the they. I'd like to ask, before I go any further, I would like to ask anyone who has been a participant, an organizer, a student, a teacher, a parent of Save Our Schools campaign, if you would please come and stand beside me, because this is our voice, not my voice, but this is our voice. So please come join, come join, come join. As Save Our Schools is walking forward, I'm now going to ask that any woman or child of color to please come and join me on this platform, because this is not just my voice, this is our voice. Any woman or child of color to please come up on this platform. This is not just my voice, but it's our voice. Any persons that are experiencing any disabilities, persons with disabilities, please come and stand on this platform with us. This is not just my voice, this is our voice. Any persons from the beloved LGBTQ community, please come and stand on this platform with us. Because this is not just my voice, this is our voice. Any dreamers that are out there that have not come forward, dreamers, please come forward, because this is not just my voice, this is our voice. If for any reason you consider yourselves not special, if you consider yourselves special, if you consider yourselves not different, if you consider yourselves different, please come up and join us on this platform, because it's not just about my voice, it's about our voice. I want to also thank the Arkansas Coalition for Reproductive Justice. Last year, I remember standing here with Camille and her asking me if I would consider being one of the speakers. What she failed to mention was that she was going to ask me to be the keynote speaker. And so I received accepted because I recognize that God has blessed me with a voice, and He's blessed me with a little bit of privilege that sometimes other people don't get to have. And I recognize that I want to use that voice and use that privilege to make sure that everybody that's standing beside me gets heard. I want to make sure, and I hope that each of us make sure that we use our privilege to make sure that people who are not often given voice have a voice and are not only heard, but are treated with justice, are treated with mercy, are treated with love, are treated with compassion, and are treated with human rights. If you were to attend a public school in the United States of America, realize that all of the people on this platform would be welcome to be a part of those schools. Realize that there would be no specific discrimination to keep them out of public schools. That's why we have public schools. When we weaken the message, and when we loosen the message, and when we misuse the message that people have a choice, let me explain to you what choice really is. Choice, often in America, is privilege run out of control. It is people who have decided, because I have more than you have, because my skin color is different than yours and I've deemed it superior, that I'm going to take rule and super rule over you and anything that you decide to do. And all of us say, no more, no more. We want to exercise privilege with responsibility. We want people to recognize that everybody in these United States of America are important. We want everybody in these United States to experience equity and justice. I want to tell you, yes we do. I want to tell you a story about a little girl who was attending school at Franklin Elementary School, which is now, by the way, a school that the Little Rock School District has closed. In a neighborhood and a community of people who are predominantly of color. In a neighborhood and in a community where the people of color stood up and stepped out and shouted and said, do not close our school. But what happened was our governor appointed a commissioner who has no real experience in being an administrative or an educational administrator. Our governor allowed him to appoint a superintendent of schools who not only is not from this community, but he does not have justice on his mind. We have people in leadership who are choosing to make choices for us with their privilege out of control. And what we need to do is to reclaim our schools. We need to save our schools. We need to save our neighborhoods. We need to save our communities. And we need to make sure that we don't stop until we do it. Now this little girl from Franklin Elementary School, her mother stood up to be her voice at a meeting where the superintendent was present, when she was making an appeal for the superintendent to keep this school open, because this school in this low-income, predominantly community that was predominantly people of color, this particular school had a health care clinic in it. Can you imagine? This particular school had resources for children with disabilities, for children with dyslexia, for children who had physical disabilities, for children who had emotional challenges, and their families. And all of these services, say this with me, were free. In a public school, can you imagine? Anybody wanting to close that school down. Well, this particular girl was having some challenges in her classroom, and the teacher did not dismiss her as being a disruptive child. The teacher decided that something else must be wrong with this sweet child. She didn't look at her based on the color of her skin. She didn't look at her based on the finances of her family. She didn't look at her based on the neighborhood and the community with which she lived. She did not look at her based on her faith. She looked at this child as a child in need, and she did what she could with her privilege to meet her need. She sent her to the nurse in the free clinic in their school. And guess what she found out? They found out that this child was being disrupted because she had a rare gastrointestinal disease that needed to be fixed. And guess what happened? She got it fixed. And this child is productive and doing well in school. She has been rising to the top and is certainly a leader. And despite this true story, the superintendent still closed that school. So I'm asking you, I'm appealing to you, don't just come out here and say we're fired up and ready to go unless you're willing and ready to put on your shoes, to move your legs, to move your mouth, to insist upon justice and equity for all. It's not just enough for us to have amazing leaders and representation like Senator Joyce Elliott to be on our side. We need to make sure that the people who choose to use their privilege out of control recognize that we are going to hold them accountable. Recognize that we will not allow them to keep on keeping on. We are turning the corner on this, and we're seeking justice and liberty for all. There are so many voices that we did not hear at the time of the civil rights and human rights campaign back in the 60s because people like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King had a platform and a microphone that many other people could not get because of the color of their skin, because of their gender, because of their identity, because of their disability. But he chose to speak up for everyone. And so I want us to remember all of those persons who have somehow encouraged his message to remind us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Finally, I'll leave you with these words, and I implore each of us to put them into practice. These are words from Miss Elizabeth Eckford, and she says this so very simply and profoundly in her book, The Worst First Day, Bullied While Desegregating Central High. These are her words. If you don't have the book, get it. Let your fame come from kindness or intelligence, not from inflicting pain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Whitfield, for that. Okay, so I'm supposed to give y'all a call to action. I think you've already been called to action, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm going to say it one more time. We're the ones that we've been waiting for. This is the moment for all of us to get engaged. There are no special skills to join a movement. You've just heard from Just Communities of Arkansas, which connects the dots to all the oppressions affecting us. You've heard from a healthcare and disability activist who's used their body and their voice to fight. You've heard from the ACLU, which has always been standing in all of our corners and fighting the good fight. You've heard from a trailblazing reproductive justice advocate who used her privilege to create safe spaces for trans and gender nonconforming people. You heard from a documented dreamer who bravely stands as a role model for her niece and nephew, working 3 jobs to get an education and loves this country that has not loved her back. And you've heard from a lifelong human rights activist who's working to save our schools here in Little Rock and is organizing across issues. There are many other organizations that are out here, and you need to choose one. They're tabling out there. There are people standing behind me with signs. I know I know that there are people here from the Center for Artistic Revolution, from the Arkansas Transgender Equality Coalition, my own organization, the Human Rights Campaign, Lucy's Place, Grassroots Arkansas, Planned Parenthood, Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance, Moms Demand Action, the Arkansas Society of Free Thinkers, and I'm sure there's probably another 10 or 12 orgs that are here. The Arkansas Coalition to End the Death Penalty, Arkansas Poor People's Campaign, shout them out. Sorry. Arkansas Advocates for Youth and Families, yes. And AUCC, as we mentioned before. So my call to action for you is to get involved, get engaged, get mobilized, get active, get in where you fit in, and vote. If you're not registered, I know there's a table here with people who are ready to get you registered to vote. There are campaigns to plug into, there are candidates to talk to. You are the ones that you have been waiting for. No contribution is too small, and whatever the issue you take up, whatever the organization you join, listen to and learn from others that don't look like you, that don't have the privileges that you do, that don't live your reality, and connect the dots between your humanity. One more time, we are the ones that we have been waiting for, and you can make a difference.
I know it's cold, but we're almost done. All right. I would like to thank all of our speakers for sharing your inspirational messages. Hold on to the messages that they shared. Be intentional about the ways you put their messages into action. Showing up today is only half of the battle. We must take the energy that we are receiving from each other and use it as a force for change. Don't just show up today, show up every day moving forward. Show up at the polls and make sure your friends and family members are showing up at the polls. Show up at the legislative session. The personal is political, and we cannot stand by and let our elected officials work against us. We will not be defeated. Speak to the candidates who showed up today for you. Make sure that if they are elected, they will continue to show up and speak for all of us. Hold them accountable. A few more things before we close. Please join us at Vino's Brew Pub for our after party and silent auction benefit. Enjoy pizza, beer, fellowship, and listen to live music by Daughters of Triton. Our rally is held in January to commemorate the January 22nd, 1973 landmark decision, Roe v. Wade. It began as a counter-protest to the March for Life. 45 years later, and we're still having to defend our right to safe and legal abortions. I understand that some people are personally against abortion, but I ask that you put yourself in someone else's shoes before judging them. There are too many reasons why abortion must remain safe and legal. This has nothing to do with being pro-life. We are losing our access to reproductive health care options and our abilities to decide for ourselves when and if we would like to have children. The March for Life is tomorrow, just in case you didn't know that. They seem to miss the irony in having a keynote speaker who is a proponent of the death penalty. It's time that we reclaim the term pro-life. Folks, we are pro-life. Pro the life of the child who doesn't deserve to be brought into a world with parents who do not love them. Pro the life of the baby who deserves access to quality and affordable health care, regardless of the income bracket their parents fall under. Pro the life of the woman who deserves autonomy over her body and access to resources that will enable her to have children when it is best for her or not to have children at all. Pro the life of the family who wants to have a child but due to an abnormality must make a difficult choice. And Trent Garner and people and politicians in Ohio, you do not get to take that choice away from them. Pro the life of the 10-year-old girl who became pregnant after her mother's boyfriend assaulted her. Proud of the life of the black boy who should still be here, but instead he was murdered by police officers for holding a toy gun. Proud of the life of the person who was wrongfully convicted and is now sitting on death row for a crime they did not commit. Proud of the life of the immigrant family who exhibited extreme bravery when they traveled to our country so they could provide a better life for their family. Proud of the life of the dreamer who is working multiple jobs to put themselves through college while their future hangs in the balance. Proud of the life of the 9-year-old assault survivor whose judge proclaimed that her assault couldn't have been too traumatic because she has an intellectual disability that protected her. Proud of the life of the trans person who deserves access to health care and should not have to worry about a healthcare professional refusing to care for them because of who they are. Proud of the life of the LGBTQ teen who does not feel like they belong and oftentimes does not feel safe because for too long society has told them that they are not welcome. In my America, all of these people are welcome. The only way that we can truly make America great is to unapologetically stand in solidarity to push forward. We must demand that we will no longer take steps backwards. Progress is for everyone, and we must work together to ensure a just society for all. We're going to close with a call and response. If everyone's comfortable holding hands with the person next to them, we're going to end this on a powerful note.
Ask permission before you hold hands. This year was so easy, I didn't have to prepare anything. My name is Camille Richoux, and I am gonna end us today with, a classic. Let's Assata Shakur it up. Thank you all for coming today. So, the first thing you need to do, and the only thing you need to do, is repeat after me. We have a duty to fight. We have a duty to fight. We have a duty to win. We have a duty to win. We must love one another and support one another. We must love one another and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Can we fill it up just a little bit louder one more time? We have a duty to fight. We have a duty to fight. We have a duty to win. We have a duty to win. We must love one another and support one another. We must love one another and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Let's kick some ass.
What do you want the world to look like? What do you want it to be? Do you know that the world has two sides and nobody is free? Did your mama come from Mexico? Papa come from Palestine? Sticking out through Syria, crossing all the borderlines. Down the deep